Alright, good day to you. Welcome to another video in this channel. In this topic, we will be talking about the nervous system. So basically, the human body is lined with lots of nerves, and they act like electrical cables that send signals quickly to other parts of the body, depending on what kind of stimuli it receives and what kind of actions need to be taken. And all of these work together to help, of course, to keep the organism alive. Okay, and the nervous system is made up of two major systems: the central nervous system, which is just the brain and spinal cord, and of course the other one will be the peripheral nervous system. So it may be a vocabulary to you. Peripheral means things that are at the side, the periphery. Okay, so you have the nerves that is in the center and the nerves that are on the side, which of course branch out to the many different areas of the head by the cranial nerves. There are 12 pairs of cranial nerves. You don't have to remember them. And different spinal nerves that stretch far and wide to all corners of the body. And of course, we have different sense organs to sense different stimuli, receive information from the surroundings, and they are called the receptors. These information are transmitted as nerve impulses in the nerves to the central nervous system, where it will decide the next action to be carried out and send the appropriate response signal out to the effectors to react to the situation appropriately. And so we are talking about a lot of nerves, a lot of impulses in this video so far. So we need to understand how nerves are simply illustrated, and you need to be able to identify what kind of nerves that this is. So first we have sensory neuron. So it looks like this long structure that is insulated by, on the both side of the cell body. It receives the information and then it transmits out. Then we also have the relay neuron, pretty short, and usually it hangs around in the central nervous system to pass information from the sensory neuron to the motor neuron. And the motor neuron will be, of course, covered in greater detail. Of more emphasis, the signal enters the motor neuron via the dendrites, which is these mini branches, and then combining to become a dendron. The signal enters the cell body, and once sufficient amount of information has been gathered, and it will finally be shot out into the axon. Just remember, axon sounds like exit, so that's the place where the signal exits the motor neuron. And in this long tail of the axon, it is also myelinated by the myelin sheath, fatty substances that cover the axon to protect the signal from being lost along the way. It's like the insulation you have on your electrical cables, and there's little gaps over here they call the nodes of Ranvier that are not insulated, where signals can jump from one node to another to speed up the electrical signal transferring process. And in the end of it is the axon terminal, where it connects to an end plate to an effector, so probably a muscle or a gland, so on and so forth. Okay, and in secondary school level, even in pure science, you don't have to understand the mechanism of how the electrical signal is generated, what kind of voltages are involved, and how it sends the signal and all that. It is not necessary. You just have to remember that electrical signals are sent and received. That's all. And from nerve to nerve, there's this little junction whereby they kind of like touch hands, hold hands. Okay, this little gap down here will be called the synapse. It's the junction between two neural cells, and little chemicals are sprayed out of the information donating neuron to the information receiving neuron. Okay, don't have to know too much of it about this. Okay, and also basic anatomy of the brain and spinal cord. Okay, first we look at the spinal cord. This is how it looks like. The gray matter is on the inside, the white matter is on the outside, and for the brain, it's reversed. How do you remember this? Is bones are white, so on the outside is white, and you just have to reverse the information for the brain. Okay, and central canal is just where all the cerebrospinal fluid are contained and nourishes these structures. And there are two branches that exit on both ends of the spinal cord, one called the dorsal root and one the ventral root. Dorsal in anatomical direction, it means the back. So in a fish, the dorsal fin will be the one that is on the back. Fish, whales, sharks, they have all this iconic dorsal fin that peeps out of the water. that is called the back, and on the tummy side will be the ventral. So the dorsal root ganglion is the place where it has a lot of cell bodies of the sensory neurons, so it faces more towards the back of the organism. Okay, now for the more interesting part of this video, we'll be talking about the information pathways. First, we talk about sensation. How is information passed when we receive a sensation? First, the receptors of the skin will receive the information is passed to the sensory neuron, and the relay neuron in spinal cord will bring it to the brain, and the brain receives this information and understands it as a particular sensation. For example, eyes, you feel the cold. Okay, next will be voluntary action, where something is deliberate and intentional. So the signal comes first from the brain, the decision is made, and it passes to the relay neuron in the spinal cord and to the motor neuron, and the motor neuron will send the signal into the effector, probably a muscle. And in reflex action is probably the more focused concept in this chapter, talking about involuntary action, where immediate response is created to a specific stimuli without deliberate intention or conscious control. So for example, knee-jerk experiment, where you tap the tendon that is under your kneecap, it will produce a little tension in the thigh muscles. This is a common example of a reflex action that you may be familiar with. Okay, reflex actions can be classified as two different types: the cranial reflexes that usually occurs in the head region, and spinal reflexes that occurs at the rest of the body. Okay, so things like if you touch a hot object, the skin receptors receives the information, the heat, it passes into the sensory neuron and then into the spinal cord. The relay neuron will take this information and pass it onto the motor neuron. The motor neuron will pass it on to the effector muscles, which will take action to bring the hand away from the hot object, thereby protecting the organism from further harm. This is also known as the reflex arc, the shortest pathway the impulses travel to create an action, from the receptor to the effector. So the reflex arc consists of these. And similarly, things like if a dust particle comes into contact with your eye, the reflex arc will go through all of these actions to stimulate blinking and tearing, and the reflex center will be the brain instead of the spinal cord because it occurs in the head region. And that is all for today. Hope you enjoyed this video. Give it a like and subscribe, share it with somebody that needs to see this, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.